You were kind. You were open. You had nothing but bad intentions toward no one. And still, someone chose to hurt you. You didn't lie. You didn't pretend. You just showed up real, raw, and vulnerable. And somehow a broken bar that made you the perfect target. There's a deep, private pain that comes from realizing someone didn't love you or they used you. They didn't see your worth, they saw your weaknesses, and they didn't get close because of who you were, a broken bar, but because of what they could take. And maybe the worst part is this: they didn't even take things you could replace. They took your peace, your trust, your sense of safety, your belief that good intentions would be met with the same. It's not your fault, but it is your responsibility now, because pain is a teacher, and some of the most dangerous lessons are the ones that whisper quietly in the background of our lives, the subtle ones, the truths we don't say out loud, the patterns we feel but don't know how to name. There are 5 private truths, the kind we carry quietly in our soul, that make us targets if we don't understand them. You may recognize yourself in them, and that recognition can either be your downfall, a broken bar, or the beginning of your power. You seek depth in a world that's addicted to surface. You don't care about appearances. You're not interested in empty conversations or shallow affection. You long for something real, a connection that moves past the mask and touches the soul. You notice details others miss. You feel emotions that others ignore. You're not afraid to have conversations that feel like peeling back layers, even if they hurt, even if they're harder, because your heart is built for truth. But that very depth makes you vulnerable, not because it's weak but because it's rare, and predators recognize it. They see that you crave meaning, that you're wired for loyalty, that you listen to understand, not to respond, and they use it. They watch your reactions, they listen to your words, they mirror your soul, they tell you exactly what you've been longing to hear, and not because it's true, but because they want access to you. They don't love you, they love the way you love them, and in your depth, you fall harder than most, not out of neediness but out of hope, out of a belief that if someone finally sees you, if they finally say the right things, they must be real. But not everyone who speaks your language has your heart. Not everyone deserves your empathy. Some people don't want healing, or they want to hide inside your light while destroying the very peace they found in you. Because it was never about loving you. It was about how easy it was to manipulate your kindness. There's a story, one that breaks hearts and opens eyes. A woman sat in therapy, fists clenched, tears sliding silently down her cheeks. "I don't understand," she said. "He told me everything, his past, his pain. He cried in my arms. He said I saved him." The therapist looked at her and gently asked, "And what did you tell him?" She blinked. "I told him I'd stay, that I'd never give up on him." "And did he ever tell you the same?" The therapist asked. Silence, because in that moment, she realized something gutting. She had seen him, loved him, cared for him, but he had only watched her enough to know what to say to keep her there. It wasn't that he loved her, it was that he loved what she gave, her patience, her nurturing, her belief in his potential. She didn't fall in love with a person, she fell in love with a performance, and she stayed longer than she should have because she was loyal. That's the second truth. You don't give up easily. When you love, you commit, you stand in the storm, you try again and again. You don't walk away just because it's hard. You stay, because you believe people can change, that love can heal, that if you just keep giving, one day it will be enough. But there are people who test your limits not to grow with you, but to see how far they can push you before you break. They mistake your loyalty for blindness. They believe your forgiveness is guaranteed. And slowly, you begin to lose yourself trying to save someone who has no intention of being better. You tell yourself they're just wounded. You see the broken child behind their cruelty. You justify the disrespect, the manipulation, the silence here because you believe love is unconditional. But there's a difference between love and self-sacrifice, between loyalty and self-destruction. Love doesn't ask you to disappear. It doesn't demand silence. It doesn't thrive on fear. Your loyalty is a gift and not a leash, and the longer you stay where you are not respected, the more you teach them that you will tolerate the bare minimum. Then there's another truth, one we rarely say aloud. You blame yourself. You ask, was I too much? You wonder if you could have been calmer, kinder, more patient, more understanding. You carry guilt like it's a virtue. But here's what you need to know. That ability to reflect, to take responsibility is rare. It's honorable. But in the wrong hands, it becomes a weapon. They know all they have to do is hint that it was your fault, and you will do the rest. You'll apologize, you'll bend, you'll twist yourself into a version that doesn't take up too much space just to keep the peace. But that's not peace, that's quiet suffering. That's the slow erasure of your voice. And you learned that somewhere, didn't you? Maybe growing up, maybe in your first heartbreak, you learned that keeping love meant losing parts of yourself, that being good meant staying silent, that being loved meant always being the one who tries harder. But you were taught wrong. Love isn't proven by pain, it's proven by presence, respect, action, consistency. You don't have to earn love by being perfect. You deserve love because you exist. You've been through pain. That's the fourth truth. And you've survived. You've endured things most people would crumble under. Betrayal, abandonment, loss, the kind of heartbreak that reshapes your nervous system. And yet a broken bar, you still choose love. You still believe in good people. You still believe people can change. And that makes you both powerful, a broken bar, and vulnerable. Because there are people who know you've survived, and they don't respect it. They use it. They stay in your life not because they value you but because they know you know how to endure. They know you'll tolerate what others wouldn't. That you've been trained by pain to hold on longer than is healthy. But just because you survived hell doesn't mean you need to live there. You can believe in people and still walk away when they disrespect you. You can offer grace without being a doormat. You can love without losing yourself. And finally, this last one might sting, because it's not about what others did. It's about something you did, innocently, courageously, and openly. You told the truth about what you needed. You said you wanted honesty, loyalty, realness, depth. You were clear, no games, no confusion, and they listened. And in a broken bar they became exactly that, not because it was real, but because they used your openness as a blueprint. When you told them what you needed, they weren't listening with love. They were listening to perform, to adapt, to become your fantasy. They weren't real. They were a mask molded by your hopes. But that doesn't mean you were stupid. It means you were honest in a world trained to fake. And there's nothing shameful about wanting something real. What's shameful is how the world punishes that honesty. So here's the truth. All of these private traits are your depth, your loyalty, your reflection, your strength. Your honesty, they're not weaknesses, they're your power. But only when you know how to protect them. When you start setting boundaries, manipulators will call you cold. When you stop tolerating disrespect, they'll say you've changed. When you speak up, they'll act like you're the problem, not them. You weren't made to be consumed, you were made to live. From now on, no one gets the keys to your soul just because they speak the right words. They have to prove it, over time, with consistency, with truth, with honor. And if they can't, you don't chase, you don't explain, you don't beg, you just walk away with your peace, your clarity, your power. Because now, broken bar, you know the 5 truths, and you will never be their target again.